So this is what an average RPG game looks like. Tons of buttons, complex UI, abilities, hard controls. Looking at you, Dark Souls. That's why I decided to try and make an RPG game that only has one button. There were definitely some challenges with this approach, but more on those later in the video. Now you might be asking yourself, where does one start with this kind of challenge? Well, if you take a look at all other RPGs, we can all agree they all have one common thing, and that's a really engaging combat mechanics. So how do I make a combat engaging with just a single button? My first idea was to introduce the dice, so basically I made D&D style combat just much worse. You roll a die and you do damage based on the roll, then enemy rolls the dice and you get the picture. What's the problem with that? Well, it's boring and too random, and as much as I love randomness, this one just did not seem okay. That's where I had this interesting idea. You know these swing meters you have in pretty much any game that involves a ball? Yeah, those. What if a player has a chance to influence the damage if it successfully manages to hit that sweet spot, resulting in, let's say, a critical hit? And on top of that, the player now has a base stats for the damage. Now we have more engagement, and our damage formula went from simple d6 dice roll to a d6 dice plus a base damage plus a chance for that damage to be doubled. Still, there is a part of combat we are unable to influence, and that's enemy attacks. So using the same method, we can make it so the player has a chance to block the damage if it successfully hits a sweet spot. With combat over, we can move on to other stuff. Well, I made this combat even more interesting later in the video. Next, the most important thing in any RPGs are... Okay, pause. Before moving on, I need to get rid of this boring default art and make something that is more fitting with the theme of the game. And after God knows how many days, I ended up making this. Few enemies, a player, and an environment to fit them all together. I also made few animations for both players and enemies just to make this game more alive. And with all that, the game looks way better.
Nice.
Next, the most important thing in any RPGs are rewards, items, and treasures player can find or earn. Rewards were the easiest one to implement. I just made it so the enemies drop gold when defeated. Now about the items, since this has to be controlled by a single button, having an inventory and gear slots is almost impossible to navigate, I ended up making everything stat based. Enemies drop experience and your levels give you base stat increments. I went with the simple approach and made 10 levels. I created a JSON file to hold the data about each level's stats that is easily expanded if needed. Then I made this treasure chest which you can randomly encounter. It gives you a fair amount of gold. I also gave it an animation when opening. So far, I implemented multiple ways to earn gold, but not a single way to spend all that gold. That's why I created this fat fuck, which should be a traveling merchant. He has a chance to randomly appear, offering you a single stat boost for a portion of your gold. In order to interact with the merchant, you need to play a minigame that looks similar to the combat mechanic. You have a swing meter with two zones, red and green. Red represents that you don't agree with the offer, while green represents that you do. I talked a lot about the encounters in this game, but how do they actually work? It's simple. Player starts off game by running, and after a few seconds he encounters one of three possible things: a chest, an enemy, or a traveling merchant. After 10 combat encounters, the boss appears. Well, I haven't decided yet what it will do differently than an average enemy, so in the meantime, I think I should finally show you that more engaging combat I mentioned earlier in the video. Before, the combat loop was very simple. The swing meter has a normal attack and a sweet spot that acts as a critical strike when it's player's turn and a damage evasion when it's the enemy's turn. Now, the swing meter is a bit different. So, when it's the player's turn, it has 4 zones: green, red, gold, and whatever this color is. Green acts as a healing zone. It heals the player for a d6 roll. Simple. The gold zone represents the critical strike we already had before, only this time there is a red zone surrounding it. That's the danger zone. If you try to go for a critical strike and miss, you're most likely going to hit this red zone, which will result in an attack miss, making going for a crit high risk, high reward type of decision. And the last zone didn't change, it's still just a normal damage attack. On the enemy's turn, things are similar but mean different things. We have blue, gold, and red zones, and again, whatever this color is. The blue zone, if you can guess it, means shield. It will reduce the enemy's attack damage by 2 times your current shield value. It's usually a bigger zone and less risky to hit than gold. Gold is now an evasion zone, with red being high risk zone that results in the enemy hitting you with a critical strike. With this, I made combat more engaging without changing the core mechanics. I made different enemies have different zone widths and dial speeds, making the whole game more challenging. I ended up keeping the same logic for the boss enemy, because I didn't want to spend even more time on making a unique combat mechanic, since the one I already have has enough data to tweak to make him a higher threat enemy. At this stage, I feel I have proven to myself that making a single button RPG is almost impossible. Even though I did manage to make some aspects of RPG, there are tons more that I didn't. And honestly, button mashing, inventory management, packed with exploration and complex skill trees are the things that make RPG games so unique. If you wish to try out this game, there is going to be a link in the description. Also, there is a GitHub link now where you can download the full code of this game. Please leave a like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, because it helps with the algorithm, and I'll see you in the next video.